Hey, what is going on, guys? This is IFBB Pro Jordan Plantiko, store manager here at Supplement Warehouse in West Dallas. Welcome back to the Best Price Nutrition channel. I will be talking to you guys today for beginners. Where do we start? What supplements do I need to really get started? So I'm going to just touch briefly on a couple key essential things that I think every single person who is going to be going on any kind of athletic endeavor really needs to have in their arsenal when it comes to supplementation. The first thing that I want to talk about, multivitamins, okay? There's a lot of you out there that believe that multivitamins may or may not be like optional. I do believe that they're incredibly essential. They are responsible for several, probably thousands of functions in the body. To thyroid regulation is a big one, immune system, your body's ability to produce energy. They provide a lot of antioxidant content through the vitamins, especially like vitamin C. You got zinc that'll be a big supporter in, like I said, the immune system. Your vitamin D for calcium absorption, general mood support. So a multivitamin, it covers such a broad spectrum. It really can't be compared to any other supplement in terms of how broad the benefits are. And just for a long period of time, you really don't want to be deficient in any types of vitamins and minerals because they can lead to disorders later down the line. So think of your multivitamin as your insurance policy on your nutritional profile. In terms of micronutrients, we're talking vitamins and minerals. I believe that becomes incredibly essential. Not only that you have a multivitamin, but that you have a good one. You need to have a multivitamin that is preferably certified organic or at least derived from some sort of raw materials or fermented, really for the purpose of absorption. You're going to want a multivitamin that absorbs. Wouldn't we all want something that we can absorb everything that it says on the label? When you go with synthetic multivitamins that are more or less engineered and mimicked to be like regular vitamins and minerals that are found in nature, you notice that the absorption rate is very poor. Synthetic multivitamins, they're rampant. They're like a lot of big brands will have synthetic multivitamins. So you have to really trust the brands that you're going with. But the big difference is going to be absorption rate between synthetic and natural multivitamins. Now, a couple reliable brands that I like to go with personally that we carry here at Supplement Warehouse and then Best Price Nutrition online. I am a big fan of the Garden of Life line of multivitamins. They have the Vitamin Code series and they have the My Kind series. I believe that the My Kind series is a little bit more high potency. They are tablets, so they're a little harder to swallow, opposed to the Vitamin Code that are capsules. They're easier to swallow, but you have to take more of them and you get a little bit less out of them. But both are certified organic, whole food-based multivitamins that are incredibly reliable. And not just their multivitamins. Garden of Life is incredibly reliable for their fish oil, how they process their fish oil. Their probiotics, I use their probiotics personally, along with their multi. And so I would go with either that. Personally at the store here, our best seller is the VitaStack from All Max Nutrition. It's a full vitamin program that will feature a fish oil, a multivitamin, multimineral, and antioxidant complex. I believe a thyroid and digestive support as well. A blood sugar stabilizing blend, which is mainly made up of chromium. I believe there might be some cinnamon or bitter melon featured in there as well. But for people who want a more extensive program, as long as you can manage more pills that you're taking in, that is one of our best sellers. Beyond that, Life Extension is a very, very reliable brand as well. When it comes to multivitamins, I believe most of their multis are 2 tablets daily. I believe that any legitimate multivitamin will have you taking at least 2 a day. I'm not a big believer in 1 a days. I think that's really the bare minimal, and I don't look to minimalize. I really try and maximize. So even above adequate, we're trying to maximize. So depending on your exercise frequency, your total expenditure, your work demand, you might require more of these micronutrients. So multivitamins become incredibly important and foundational. Beyond the multivitamin, I want to talk about protein, okay? Protein, most people do not get enough protein in their diet, and most people don't fully understand the benefits of protein. Most people think of protein and they think of building muscle. That is definitely true that protein helps repair muscle tissue. Protein has a lot of restorative benefits, not just from a musculature standpoint, but from a cellular standpoint. So not all proteins are for rebuilding muscle tissue. A lot of them are associated with skin, hair. A lot of our internal organs, like all cells, are made up of protein molecules. So we require protein more than probably arguably any other macronutrient for its restorative benefits. Not to mention the thermic effect of protein. Protein has a very high thermic effect right next to fiber. They both do very good in terms of burning calories for how much it takes to process these macronutrients. So I would make the argument that you might even require more protein when you're dieting or trying to lose weight. A lot of people want to stray away from protein powders or sources of protein when they're dieting, when really they should be more intentional with taking in more protein. So this is a really common misconception that we gotta kind of rewire in our brains here. Protein is essential regardless of your diet, unless of course you have some sort of disorder that you're not able to process protein like the average person would. I think protein is probably one of the most crucial things. But obviously, yes, protein for muscular repair and recovery, building muscle, but also for sparing muscle tissue if you're going to be dieting or trying to lose weight. The protein sources, I am a big advocate of complete protein sources. So we're obviously talking about animal-based proteins will most likely be the most complete sources of protein, and they're going to be very micronutrient dense. From a supplement standpoint, some of the complete proteins that you'll see in supplements, if you want to go plant-based, getting a complete protein source, I would rely on soy protein. Not saying that I'm an advocate of soy protein, but it is one of the only complete protein sources that is a plant or derived from a plant source. I am a big advocate of whey protein. I use probably 50 to 100 grams of whey protein a day myself. There's a lot of reasons that I prefer whey protein over other supplement powders, but let me give you a couple big reasons why I go with whey protein. One, its rate of digestion. There is no protein that will digest as fast as whey protein. You cannot assimilate a chicken breast as fast as you can a whey protein. You can think about it, casein is on the opposite spectrum, and it's one of the slowest digesting proteins, taking up to 8 to 10 hours to fully digest. The benefit of fast digesting protein is you're going to get that full amino acid profile that protein offers in that window of time that it takes to assimilate. So whey protein, that's why a lot of people use whey protein post-workout, because they need or want all of those amino acids delivered quickly to start the repair process as soon as possible. So whey protein, there is no real replacement for whey protein if you really want to maximize your post-workout recovery, growth, whatever your goal might be. Another alternative to whey protein would probably be egg protein. That's usually the alternative I have people go with. Egg protein does digest slower. Usually the slower a protein is to digest, that means the more difficult it is to digest. So it usually causes more gastric distress the longer it takes for that protein to digest. So we'll talk a lot about gut health in future videos, but for the most part, we want to minimize gastric distress. Which also leads me to the purity of whey. There's different qualities of whey protein. We have whey concentrate, we have whey isolate, we have hydrolyzed whey isolate. What's the difference between these types of proteins? Whey concentrate is probably going to be the most basic form of whey protein. As you guys may or may not know, whey protein essentially comes from milk. Really, it's part of the cheese making process with the milk. They threw it away for the longest time because they didn't know what to do with it. But once they found a use for it and they realized that they can use it in powdered supplementation and add flavor to it, obviously the supplement manufacturers, it boomed in terms of publicity or awareness. So whey protein definitely has a lot of advantages. It also has one of the best amino profiles for building and repairing muscle tissue. There's very few protein sources that will offer as many branched chain amino acids or BCAAs as whey protein will. So it will elicit the highest anabolic response in the body. Not only that, from the rate of digestion, but also the amino acids and the bioavailability. So you got to keep that in mind with a lot of proteins too. That's why I really picked egg protein as a good alternative, because both whey and egg protein have 100% bioavailability, or maybe more safely quoted at 99.9. Whereas beef protein, for example, I know a lot of people like to use like a beef protein powder. I personally prefer people to eat their beef instead of drink it. I just never really believed in the concept of taking all the good beneficial micronutrients found in natural sustainable beef and then removing that and just isolating the protein. Because beef protein, its bioavailability, how much of it you actually absorb for how much you're ingesting, it's roughly around about 80%. So you really don't eat beef necessarily for the protein source. Yes, it provides protein and a lot of complete amino acids and creatine, but you really do it for all the micronutrients involved with the beef too. It's probably, debatably, one of the most nutrient-dense protein sources you can get. So I tell people to eat their beef, and then for a powdered supplementation, go with whey protein. If you have a lactose allergy of some kind, just avoid the whey concentrates, because the whey concentrates will have more fat per serving, more carbs, and less protein per serving. The amino profile suffers because of that. We can step it up to a whey isolate that goes through more of a refining filtering process, where it filters out more of the existing lactose, where there is very trace amounts. You can hardly detect any lactose in whey isolate. And because of that, there's less carbohydrates in there per serving, along with less fats, and then higher protein per serving, which means the amino acid profile goes up, causes less gastric distress, which means it's in and out of your system faster, and it minimizes potential gastric inflammation. There is one step above a whey isolate, and that would be a hydrolyzed whey isolate. Hydrolyzed whey isolate is basically pre-digested or fermented. So basically, if you guys are familiar with BCAAs or essential amino acids, they are already pre-broken down, they're pre-digested. Basically, hydrolyzed whey isolate acts in a very similar way. Once you ingest hydrolyzed whey isolate, when it hits the stomach, there is little processes needed to really uptake and utilize that protein. So that is the most gut-friendly protein source that you could probably use. So like I hear a lot of people that say they have to stay away from whey protein because it's, for whatever reason, upsets their stomach. It's usually because they're using some sort of whey protein blend where it might have some milk protein in there, it might have some casein, it might have some whey concentrate that just has more lactose in it. So if you have those kinds of issues, I would probably just stick to just a regular, a well-filtered whey isolate, or if you have the money for it, a step above that would be getting a hydrolyzed whey isolate or a blend of the two, whey isolate and hydrolyzed whey isolate. So that does it for protein supplementation that I'll cover in this video. The last thing to get started, we talked about multivitamin, we talked about protein. The other one, if I had to pick a third, would probably be probiotics. If you guys aren't familiar with probiotics, probiotics are the good bacteria that are naturally found in our stomach. Our body produces probiotics, or at least they cultivate within us. They're bacteria, so they're living bacteria that we have in our stomachs. But what probiotics essentially do is we're exogenously supplementing additional active strains of probiotics to help with the fermentation process that we have going on. I like to use the analogy of, you compare a chicken to a cow. If you guys know, cows, I believe have 4 stomachs. It's either 3 or 4. Either way, they have a much more elaborate fermentation system than like the basic animal or even a human. We have 1 stomach. Like a lot of animals have 1 stomach, but cows, they have 4. Yet they only have basically grass and corn. Yet they are able to amass like a large amount of total body weight. So how do these cows put on so much tissue and muscle when they really don't ingest any type of protein? That's the fermentation process. So these multiple different systems that they have for digestion allow for more efficient fermentation. So these bacteria ultimately will convert raw material into what the body needs to feed the body. So that is also how we cover a lot of our nutritional gaps. So like some people get away with a very poor diet for a while, and they might be relying very heavily on their body to ferment a lot of the foods that they eat into something a little bit more productive than they might be actually ingesting. But you'll notice over time, when you stretch out, having a poorly structured diet for a long period of time, your digestive tract doesn't hold up very well. You start to get gassy, you start to get bloated, you malabsorb food, you start to develop food intolerances. These are all ramifications to not addressing or optimizing digestive health and keeping a good intestinal flora, if you will. So probiotic supplementation, what the benefit of it is, why it's significant, is the fact that it allows for a more optimal digestive tract. It is probably the foundation for your digestive health. We have more living bacteria in our body than we do living cells. It's insane. If you really think about how many bacteria that could quantify, it's ridiculous. So basically with the bacterial strains, you're going to have good and you're going to have bad bacteria. So when we develop an illness or a virus, these are bad bacteria that have cultivated to a point where they're causing maybe internally noticeable side effects. So we take an antibiotic to destroy these bad bacteria, and unfortunately it also destroys the good ones. So probiotic supplementation becomes even more important when we are having to go on antibiotics. Like I just had my wisdom tooth pulled a few months ago. I had to go on an antibiotic. I doubled down on the amount of probiotics I was already using to make sure that it didn't affect my digestive tract in any negative way. So probiotics, they're really what they're used for is boosting your body's ability to utilize nutrients. It's not a question of does my digestive system work or doesn't it? It runs on a scale. So on the one end of the scale, we have a digestive system that cannot absorb anything. We have so many disorders, we can't process anything. Our body rejects all nutrients. Okay? If anybody was that low on the spectrum, they would probably be dead. So no one really operates in that area. On the other side, it's 100% I absorb everything that I ingest. Every little thing is absorbed and I use. Okay, so we all fall on that line somewhere. So then it would make sense that we should be supplementing things that will optimize that scale toward maximally absorbing the nutrients that we provide our bodies. So that's where probiotics ultimately come in. So those 3 core supplements, I believe, should make up the foundation for anybody that's getting started with supplementation. Beyond that, then we can start getting into the fun stuff. I know this stuff isn't always flashy, it's not exciting, but I would recommend these kinds of supplements to anybody off the street. I don't care if you work out or not, because most people don't get enough protein. Protein, muscle in general, it's the organ of longevity. You have to take care of that, or you're not going to age very smoothly. So you got to get your protein in. You got to have essential amino acids. So you need complete protein sources. Okay, the multivitamin, multimineral. We got to cover all the cofactors our body needs to operate and function properly. Otherwise, our body compromises and takes from certain areas to try and make up for the lack or the deficiency of certain vitamins and minerals. So the multivitamin is crucial as well. And then the probiotic, like we just talked about, is the foundation for your digestive health. It allows you to absorb and uptake nutrients a lot better. It causes a lot less gastric distress. It reduces bloat and inflammation. It'll flush out any built up water retention. It might speed along bowel movements if you have irregularity. You have to be cautious with probiotics too, because you can have an overactive amount of bacteria in your gut. So it's just, you don't want to go to an extreme on the probiotics, but if you don't use a probiotic now, we don't have fermented foods like we used to. So it would make sense to use at least a mild probiotic in your regime to really make sure as your insurance policy on your digestive health. But those three big things I think everybody should have when they're getting started, whether it be just for general health, but really for athletes, all of this stuff becomes your prerequisites to any further supplementation. Okay, we're not talking about pre-workouts yet. We're not talking amino acids, no test boosters, no hormonal supports, nothing. We got to cover these things first, and then we move on to more of the fun stuff. So I hope you guys liked this video. I hope you found it informative. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put a comment below. We'll make sure to answer that in the near future. And then give us a thumbs up. If you guys are not subscribed to the channel already, I would recommend you do that for more informative content. And we hope to see you guys soon. Peace out.